Hello everybody, it's George from Ireland. So welcome back to the channel. And in this video, I'm addressing myself to what Lee Anderson said recently. Lee Anderson, the notably acerbic Conservative MP. So Anderson, he is unique, has been the only Tory MP at the moment who for decades was an active member of the Labour Party, indeed was a Labour councillor, suspended by the Labour Party for contentious utterances in 2018, then selected as a Conservative candidate, and he won his seat in his own town in Derbyshire, if I'm not mistaken. So he's a first term Conservative MP, and indeed he's deputy chairman of the Conservative Party. So he reaches out to some older, particularly working class voters. He was a miner himself, and he's famous or perhaps infamous for being unspun. And he earns 100 grand a year on GB News on top of his MP salary of 85. So he was notable for saying that if refugees didn't like the conditions in the United Kingdom, they could F off back to France. But he's got himself into some hot water recently by saying that Islamists are controlling Sadiq Khan, who's the mayor of London. Sadiq Khan is a Labour politician, formerly a Labour MP, tried to be a Labour MP again, but he can't get a Labour constituency to select him. Personality clash with Sir Keir Starmer, but that's another story. But Lee Anderson's been accused of Islamophobia. And now, what is Islamophobia? I remember the late, great Christopher Hitchens said it was such a stupid and meaningless phrase. I disagree, actually. I mean, I know it's bandied around a lot. Sometimes it's a bogus accusation. There are times when it's real. So is this kind of unreasonable hostility towards Muslims, automatically assuming the Muslims are bad, that Islam is totally bad, and so forth? Prejudice, discrimination against those who subscribe to the Islamic faith, even in some cases, if it's merely a nominal membership of the religion. Sadiq Khan, so far as I know, is not particularly observant. Hamza Yusuf is an example of a British Muslim in public life who is someone who's very observant. Anyway, obviously there are myriad levels of observance. So if somebody chooses to pray to Mecca 5 times a day, it's no skin off my snout. If someone wants to eat halal and someone eschews spirituous liquor, I wouldn't object to that or whatever. I mean, women have the absolute right to wear hijabs and to dress very modestly. I don't take exception to that. So much of Islam is completely unobjectionable. And so the idea is that Sadiq Khan here is being singled out because he's a Muslim. And I don't know of any evidence that he is controlled by Islamists, actually. So what is an Islamist? That's not an average Muslim. I suppose people say it's political Islam, and it's when they would want to impose Sharia law or something like that, which, to be fair, a few people in the United Kingdom do. I've never heard Sadiq Khan advocate for that at all. And actually, some of his political positions are rather at odds with strict Islam. He's in favor of gay marriage. He doesn't want to protect the child's right to life and so on. Anyway, so Anderson is the MP for Ashfield in Nottinghamshire, sorry, not Derbyshire, where there are very few Muslims indeed. So Lee Anderson's been suspended from Islamophobia. Some senior Conservatives, they have excoriated him for what he said. Now, he's somewhat backtracked, and he said that his choice of words was injudicious, but this is not actually kind of walk back the old thing. But Sadiq Khan, he said that this is really stoking hatred. And it's true that what Mr. Anderson said is likely to exacerbate interreligious, intercommunal asperities. So Sadiq Khan said that the suspension is insufficient. The Prime Minister himself must come out with a forthright denunciation of what has been said. Now, Suella Braverman, formerly Home Secretary, and she wrote this in the Daily Telegraph. The truth is that Islamists, extremists, and anti-Semites are now in charge. Stopping there. Well, I mean, I don't think they are actually. I mean, obviously, there's some anti-Semitism in the United Kingdom. I would rather that there's none, but let's not exaggerate the problem. And extremists, who are these extremists in charge? The Conservative government is in charge. Now, this really is just twaddle. Extremists. That just means I don't like you. Whoever calls himself an extremist, I don't know of anybody. So it's really just preposterous. You've got to have a better definition of that. If the other chap is extreme in relation to you, then you're extreme in relation to him. I mean, this doesn't prove anything. It's a thought-terminating cliche, trying to brand people that, but that reproach can be hurled back by the other side. It's just preposterous. It's so vacuous. Anyway, so there are pro-Palestinian marches. There's nothing wrong with calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, upholding the human rights of people in Gaza, saying, thousands, at least several thousand civilians have been killed in Gaza. Surely that's a bad thing. Surely peace is a better way forward. Sure, that ought to be uncontroversial. But anyone who's saying that human rights for Palestinians, come on, show some mercy, they're accused of being anti-Semites. In fairness, a few of them are anti-Semites. Anyway, so I thought it was highly irresponsible. I'm not a politically correct person, but I thought that what Lee Anderson said was decidedly unhelpful to intercommunal relations as well as his own party. Anyway, so Anderson, he says he's not going to apologize. Anyway, at the moment there is no conservative advisor on Islamophobia. Rehman Chishti, who's a conservative MP of Pakistani Muslim extraction, he said it ought to be one, and so Mr. Chishti thinks that that Rishi Sunak's response has been inadequate. Anyway, we need a definition of Islamophobia. The chairwoman of the Labour Party, who had the great fortune to know me as an undergraduate, Annalise Dodds, she says that the Conservative Party needs to come up with one, that this is a significant problem and so on. But other people have spoken out about it. Kemi Badenoch, she's the sort of queen of anti-woke, says no, because that would in effect be bringing in a blasphemy law, so we mustn't have that. So Baroness Warsi, she's a conservative politician. She's a Muslim herself, and said that anyway, we ought to do something about Islamophobia, and that the Conservative Party's been rather behindhand on this issue. So goodness, yeah, Mr. Anderson is speaking for some people. There are people who definitely agree with him. Anyway, there was another Conservative politician who sparked controversy. Paul Scully said there are no-go areas in certain places like Sparkhill and Birmingham and Tower Hamlets. I think it's ridiculous. I might go there to prove myself that that's definitely not the case. So I don't know how Sadiq Khan could be said to be controlled by Islamists. I would like to see some substantiation of Lee Anderson's remarks. This is unstatesmanlike, to say the least. Goodness, I don't think he's advanced an Islamist agenda, Sadiq Khan. And I don't think he's actually been a bad mayor of London. I would definitely vote against him for other reasons. So yeah, it was really just a ridiculous thing to say, and it's done a great disservice to the Conservative Party. So he'll be suspended. The Conservative Party would really like this to die down. Trouble is, the response is often driven by presentational reasons, not doing justice to the original to the actual person. Obviously, Labour will try and make as big a hoo-ha out of this as possible, try and exploit this. So Lee Anderson was unwise, at the very least, to simply hand ammunition to his opponents. Where will it end? I don't see him being expelled from the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party thinks that he's an asset, and that he appeals to people who are not natural conservatives, as he wasn't one himself. And that shooting from the lip, that appeals to a certain segment of the electorate. Well, thank you for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon, donate on PayPal. Right, toodle pip.